Hey, Cam here again. Welcome to part 2 of the series where I set up my new Eric Dressen pup deck. Originally this was going to be one video, but as I explained at the end of part 1, I ran into I made a couple of mistakes, to be fair, when I installed these rails, mistakes I do not usually make. And I thought maybe you might want to learn some things about what to do and what not to do when it comes to installing rails. Through my errors. I've done dozens of rail installs and never made this mistake before, but there's a first time for everything. So we rejoined 1 week ago, Cam, when I'm talking about why I've gone with Santa Cruz rails over my usual pig rails. I normally use pig rails, and I was going to get some black pig rails, such as the ones on this Jeff Kendall reissue. But I actually took these off last night and I tried them out on this deck just with some double-sided tape, and found that because of the extra width on this board and the deeper concave, when I put the pig rails, because they were a lower profile, that they were a bit too low, and I would have had to put them quite far towards the center of the deck in order to clear the concave. Otherwise what happens is the rails sit there, the board still sits. When you're sliding or rock faking or whatever, the rails are doing nothing basically if they're below the concave of the board. So I happen to have this white set of Santa Cruz rails lying around that I originally bought to use on my McGill, but then I used red pig rails on that. So I have these lying around, so even though I did initially want to have black rails, it looks like I'm going to have white rails, but that's fine. Okay, so here we go, let's put on some rails. Now the first thing I noticed about these Santa Cruz rails when I got them out of the packet is they're not symmetrical. They have sort of a sharper edge and a more rounded edge, and I had no idea which way around they were supposed to go. And I scoured the internet, nobody seemed to know, so I went with sort of the rounded edge facing outwards, just because I thought maybe it was to stop them from catching on things when you rail slid, or if you're sort of leaning back on one rail. And I kind of preferred the logo that way around anyway, facing towards the graphic. And the other question I had was how far back I should put the rails, because normally I put them a little bit back towards the back trucks, and these bits of masking tape are marking out the lines of the truck bolts. And as you can see, I'm lining it up just past the back piece of masking tape, because in the past it's helped me prevent breakage to have the rails a little bit further back. But somebody on my Mike McGill setup video mentioned that I was introducing the possibility of rail bite, the wheels hitting the rails, which I've never really come across before. So when I was installing these rails, I tried to make sure that I didn't put them too far back, because they are a little bit taller, the Santa Cruz rails, and I didn't want to encounter this thing called rail bite. So as I was putting them on, I wondered if I had put them too far back or not. Maybe they could have been just a little bit further forward. Me taking the rails off here is just purely my normal process. I sand down these little volcanoes that the drilling causes, and then take off the rest of the tape paper and screw the rails back down, making sure they go into the original holes and you're not drilling any unnecessary extra holes accidentally. But so far this rail install has all gone according to plan, and everything is totally fine, and it looks very good. I'm very happy with the way those see, this masking tape's caught under this rail, so I have to undo that screw to get the masking tape off, but it looks very good. I'm happy with how it's come out, and the clearance is good still, and just tightening it up by hand, because I try not to over tighten them with the drill. And there we go, grip tape looks great, the rails look great, everything's awesome. Just need some trucks and wheels and it'll be ready to go. By the way, if you do want a more detailed explanation of all these steps and processes, particularly with installing rails, check out the Mike McGill board setup video I did. It's about a year earlier than this one, although probably only a couple of videos back on my channel actually. And there you go, that looks awesome, I'm really happy with it. All it needs now is some stickers. And I decided to go with all blue stickers because it just kind of adds one extra colour that ties in really well with the blue graphics on the Spitfire wheels, and I think kind of pulls the whole sort of complete together. So we've got the big Spitfire logo and a couple of Seaside Skate stickers,
And it looks awesome. Actually, I add one more sticker. It's the Slimline Rails one up there, which just kind of balances it all out, and it looks brilliant, I think, anyway.
Well, I'm really happy with how this has come out. Again, I think the colours look great. I think it really pops. Pretty happy with the choice of white rails, in all honesty. I am worried that maybe they are still, as I said, a little bit too far back. Rail bite is not really something I've even thought of before. I started putting my rails further back, as I said, because I had some breakages along here, and it was right where the rail ended was where the boards were breaking. So I decided to move them back a bit, and I haven't had any boards break since then. Rail bite is not something that ever really occurred to me until somebody mentioned it on my McGill build video. It hasn't really been a problem for me before, but I have been using pig rails, which are a lot lower, and the Santa Cruz rails are quite a bit taller. You can see on my previous builds I've had the rails back like this. No issues with rail bite on this one. And this is one of my old Caballeros with the rails back. You can actually see some marks on this rail from the wheels, which I never noticed before. So I'm looking at this and thinking maybe I should have wiggled them forward just a little bit more, but I'm just going to see how it goes. And if it's an issue, I might just have to take them off and move them forward a bit. And I'll end up with a second set of screw holes, but they'll be under the rails, so you won't be able to see them anyway. But I've done a little sort of a few tests where I just lean on it, and the wheels do almost touch. So
Okay, well, it was too wet to go skating anyway, so I decided to run some more tests, and as you can see, those rails are kind of pretty much acting like a perfect brake. That board is going to stop suddenly, and I am going to go flying. So I did a few sharp turns out on the road just to get some wheel bite marks so I could see exactly where the wheels hit the deck. And as you can see, they are right snug up against that rail, so that rail is going to have to get moved forward a little bit, and then the wheels will have some clearance. So I mark out where I need them to be, then fill up the old holes with some plaster. I don't know if this is important or helps in any way, but I didn't think it could hurt. And while I had the rails off, I just thought I would take the opportunity to weigh them and answer the question, how much weight do rails add to your board? It's about 131 grams with screws included for the Santa Cruz ones. These are slightly worn pig rails are a little bit lighter, about 109 grams. But after weighing the setup with and without rails, I figured out that it's about an additional 4.8% added. So it's not insignificant. I can see why, maybe they went out of fashion a little bit. Plus, as you can see, it does sometimes cause a little bit of drama if you don't do it quite right. So we go through the whole process again. You can see that masking tape along the edges of the board there. I've marked out the line of where the old rails were. I just want them to be on exactly the same line. And we go through the whole process, the drilling and the screwing and all that stuff. But there you go, just like that. That didn't take long, thanks to the magic of video. Of course, I've got to take the rails off now and sand down all those volcanoes. Actually, the Santa Cruz rails have a little well cut out at the bottom of the holes there, and that's actually for the purpose of collecting these bits of wood that the drill creates, little volcanoes as I call them. So I probably didn't even need to do this whole step, but I'm fairly pedantic. I like to say thorough, but yeah, I'm glad I went through this process. It's probably for the best.
Well, that was a mission and something I really didn't want to have to do, but I have checked and we now have clearance. The wheels are not hitting the rails. I hate making mistakes like that, especially on video, but everybody does it from time to time. I guess this is actually the first time I've had to re-drill rails because I got them in the wrong place and I put on a lot of rails. And as much as I don't want the board to break, I'd rather the board breaks than the board puts on the brakes and then I fly off and I break, because replacing the board is a lot easier than replacing parts of my body. It's been raining the last couple of days while I've been mucking around with this, but it's starting to dry out a little bit, so hopefully tomorrow I might be able to actually ride this thing and see how it goes. Okay, so I managed to get out for a bit of a ride on this today, and I immediately loved it. I actually felt way more comfortable on it straight away. Normally when you get a new setup, it takes you a little while to get used to it and dial it in, but honestly just straight away, because I'm going from the shorter wheelbase back to the longer wheelbase, it just felt right to me. I find for my style of riding, just carving around bowls and mini ramps and stuff like that, I like to have my trucks a little bit carvy, a little bit loose, but on a shorter wheelbase it makes it feel too wobbly and squirrely. So I find on the slightly longer wheelbase, 15 inches is about right, or it's perfect for me, that I can have the trucks a little bit looser and it makes it smoother to carve. The trade-off is that it's a little bit harder to ollie, so I found that I had to slam the tail down a bit harder to get my board in the air, but I was still able to get over a few of the things I like to ollie over just to test myself. But that is one thing I noticed, and that is the trade-off. It really depends what your priorities are. So if you prioritize street skating and ollieing and kickflips and 360 flips, a shorter wheelbase is going to work better. If you prioritize bowl riding and bigger transitions, for me personally, a longer wheelbase works better. But I mean, I've got a friend who's one of the best vert skaters I know, who rides a 14.5 wheelbase, and that works for him. I wouldn't even drop in on a vert ramp on a 14.5 inch wheelbase, but whatever works for you is what you should do. All right, well, I have been out and ridden this board a couple of times now, and it's been great. The only thing is that with these rails, they are getting pretty chopped up. Like, I don't do a lot of rail slides, but these, like, I've done a few and they've been good, but they are a bit softer than the pig rails, and they're getting quite chopped up quite quickly. And I'm not sure if this is because of the way round that I've got them, when I've got this sort of sharp edge, and maybe it was supposed to be the blunter edge in the middle, and whether that would help with it getting as chopped up as they have. So I'm probably going to have to sand these down a bit, but I did just happen to see on special some of these new Slimline HSR rails, which stands for High Speed Rails, Santa Cruz's newer model. And they have got these beveled ends that are supposed to help with the wheel bite situation. And they're a slightly lower profile, which could be a problem because I moved these rails out quite far to the edge because of the higher profile. So I'm not sure if these will be tall enough now, because they would probably have wanted to be, an inch in from the edge rather than half an inch. And the other thing is they're black, which is the color that I originally wanted to do, although I'm pretty stoked with how the white looks. And finally, they are a harder material, so they hopefully should be a little bit more durable. They've also cleared up one question for me, because I know that the longer end goes on the outside of the rail, so this is the inside edge, and it is more curved than the outside edge, which is slightly sharper, which suggests that Santa Cruz at least intends for the sharper edge to go on the outside and the more curved edge to go on the inside, which is the opposite of how I've got these. So even if I keep these ones, I may switch them around and see if they get less dinged up that way. Whether it makes any difference, I have no idea. So I'm going to try them and see if I get clearance first. And also, the holes are going to have to line up, because I tell you what, I'm not drilling any more holes in this beautiful deck. 2 sets is one too many.
Well, this drill has had quite the workout over the last couple of days. So again, we take off these rails and unpack the shiny new ones, which, as I've mentioned, are slightly lower, as you can see. And they're also slightly longer, which I wasn't expecting. So even though they're designed to help avoid rail bite, they're kind of reintroducing it. See this little bit sticking out? And we don't really want that. Also, the holes don't quite line up perfectly. They're pretty close. I could probably force it, but I really don't want to strip out the holes in the deck. I mean, they've been through a lot, those holes. So at this stage, I abandoned the whole HSR rails idea. They could be for my next build, but yes, they did show me that the outside is probably supposed to be the sharper edge, and the inside is supposed to be probably the more rounded edge, despite the fact that the logos would suggest otherwise, because they will be the opposite way round from what the black ones were, which is confusing. And I reinstall the white rails the other way around, this time by hand, because as I say, the holes have been through a lot with the old drill. and just to sand down the outside of the rails, which used to be the inside of the rails and got all beaten up before. And we're done and ready to go again for about the third time, I think.
I've just come back from an epic skate this morning. A great skate in my local bowl, but which I didn't get much footage of. But I did do a couple of rail slides while I was out there, just to get a feel for these rails reorientated this way around and see if it made any difference, if I noticed any difference. And I think it did. So the thing is, if you look at the way my rails are mounted with the concave on this board, quite a lot of it, they don't sit flat. They are slightly tilted this way, which means when you're rail sliding, you're only sliding along this edge. And with the sharp edge in the middle, I found it maybe sort of caught a bit more, and it got big chunks taken out of it. With the curved edge facing towards the middle, it gives me a little bit more surface area to slide on, and it didn't seem to get quite as dinged up quite as badly. It felt a little bit more stable and just slid a little bit more smoothly for me. So for my particular setup, having the curved edge as the bit that I slid on seemed to work a little bit better. To be honest, I don't really see any advantage to the sharp edge, so if I was going to make a set of rails, they'd just probably be curved on both sides, I think would make more sense. But I guess, you know, there might be some reason to have the sharper edge. I'm not sure what it is. A lot of rails are just symmetrical both ways. I looked at some rib bones, Palperalta rib bones in a skate shop, and they just looked identical on either side. They were just like a wedge. The pig rails do seem to be slightly different. It looks a little bit more obvious what way around they go to me. Somebody said it's probably just personal preference. Maybe it is. I don't really know what Santa Cruz's intention is, but that is the conclusion that I have come to. And that is it, pretty much. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've thought I was done with this setup video, but I think I am now. I'm loving this board. It's so great to ride in the bowl particularly. And thank you to Seaside Skates for supplying me with the board. And also thank you to Eric Dressen, because I know you don't ride a 15-inch wheelbase. So thank you for making double drilled boards, so those of us who do prefer a 15-inch wheelbase can still ride your decks. I've seen some of Eric's setups with this deck and some other double drilled ones, and he's definitely riding them at the 14.5 wheelbase. But I'm glad he's putting out boards with 15-inch wheelbases. I guess him or Santa Cruz or whoever made this decision is recognising the fact that a lot of guys that ride bigger, wider boards prefer a longer wheelbase. So that works for me, and it means I can buy another Eric Dressen deck in the future, which is great because I absolutely love this shape. So that is that. That is my setup of the Eric Dressen. This one, I don't know what it's called. Evo, I think is called. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. More content to come. Maybe it's skate stuff, maybe it's guitar stuff. I don't know. I'm still making it up as I go along.